So, welcome everybody that is here in this moment, and those of you watching in the future. We will begin with a little checking in, tuning in meditation, very short and brief, but just something to ground us into this moment. So, I invite you to make yourself comfortable when you're ready and just start to take your attention into your own space, connect to your breath. Connect to your body. And start to bring your attention deeper and deeper into your body, just letting everything else fade away. Bringing your attention into this movement of the body and of the breath. Feeling, visualizing our feet planted on the earth, our roots going down into the earth. And visualizing or even lifting our palms up to the sky, visualizing that the rays of the sun coming in through the palms, coming in through the crown of the head. And both of these energies meeting somewhere in the middle in the body. The electrical charge coming in from the hands, the magnetic charge coming in from the feet. Just visualizing our electromagnetic field. So as the energy comes in down through our crown, through our hands, it goes from our head and goes down our body, down to the base of the spine, maybe even down all the way into the feet, into the roots. And then it comes back up again and goes back up the feet, the legs, back up the spine to enliven our whole being, creating this magnetic, electromagnetic field. And you can put your arms down and just stay with this visualization for another moment. Just visualizing the sun's energy and electricity combining with the earth's resonance, Schumann resonance, magnetic fields. And allowing this to ground and center us as much as possible in this moment. Just seeing what naturally dissolves away, moves, relaxes back. And from this place, start to notice what is in and around your body, any thoughts, feelings, emotions, visualizations making themselves known. Taking your breath there, taking your self-awareness there, being with that which is arising. Bringing in any movement, touch, sound. It's tending to our inner world, tending to any other parts, thoughts, feelings, emotions arising. Maybe just sending in some gratitude and appreciation for all the processes we've been through this week, all of the energies and emotions that we've moved through, realizations we've had, any successes we've had in appreciating, loving ourselves, and putting up, embodying boundaries, speaking our self-led truth, and holding compassion for ourselves for where we've faltered or fallen down or haven't quite done it or got stuck in the stickiness, stuck in the blending of parts, just bringing in that forgiveness in this moment. Just being with any parts that need us in this moment, reminding us that they're always connected and they're always able to get our attention. Feel free to spend a few moments here before you come back into the space when you're ready, taking your time. So I'm going to share something that my dear colleague and friend, dear sister Shannon Brown, has shared with me literally over the past couple of days. And it relates to one of the classes that we will be having, which is around practitioner uh, business development, practice setup. And so Ria mentioned about filling up spaces for her mentorship and that she'd like to have a few more spaces filled up to, yeah, as what she's projecting into the future. And it just came to me like, I'm going to share what Shannon shared with me. It's really important. And this may already be something that you work with. So Ria, just thumbs up. Do you work to recruit your potential clients for your mentorship through Facebook? Oh, ish. Okay, great. Like that's fine. So will be relevant to you. Um, So Shannon was sharing with me this method, and I was really surprised because at the methods that she uses to fill her mentorship. So she told me like 10 days ago or a couple of weeks ago, oh, my mentorship's starting in 2 weeks and I need to start recruiting people. And I'm like, what? 2 weeks? Like I, I start like 4 months in advance. And even then, find it very challenging. And she's like, yeah, it'll be fine. Like that's how she's always done it. And she's always, filled up her spaces. And she tells me that she tends to get, 3/4 of the spaces filled before the mentorship. And then in the first kind of week or 2 weeks, she fills up the rest of the spaces. And that's kind of how she's been taught. And that's sort of her flow and what works for her. And I was like, really curious. So I want to know more. And I've heard a little bit from her in the past. So she shared with me that the main method that she uses, her underlying method that she has is that she's cultivated a big email list over the years. Um, she cultivated an email list to about a few hundred. And then last year, she launched her first summit. She's the person who I was inspired to do the summit by. So she launched her summit. And from her summit, she gathered another 2,000 emails. And so she has this constant email going out to her email list. But actually, that's not what fills her retreat. I get the impression she probably gets at least a quarter of her places filled, maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 places filled through her email list, maybe just a few. But it sounds like the majority of people are coming through social media and particularly Facebook. So what she's done is she has joined Facebook groups that are 100% related to her audience. So Shannon is, you'll find her on Instagram, Visionary Shannon, and you'll see her in some of my posts and stories and things like that because we're here together. And she's a sound healer, and her mentorship is called Sacred Sounds, and she teaches people to integrate sound techniques and voice techniques into their healing work. And she's targeting facilitators of healing and psychedelic practitioners, particularly, who want to incorporate sound into the work that they do. So what she's done is she's joined particular groups where the people that are going to be on her mentorship will be engaging. So groups related to psychedelic medicine and groups related to sound healing practitioner stuff and sound healing. And what she does is she posts regularly in those places, or if you're not posting regularly, just go in and do a post. But the thing is, in those groups, you're not allowed to promote what you're doing. You're not allowed to do salesy stuff. So what she does is she picks a little clever little bit of content from her program, a little slither of it, but something really juicy and powerful that people are really wanting to know. This maybe kind of a bit sexy or buzzwords, the hooks that hook people in, but something different. And she does a whole post about it, and she shares some cool stuff around it and some beautiful pictures. And what happens is she gets loads of engagement. So these are groups where there's like tens and tens and even maybe hundreds of thousands of people. So she says that, one of these posts will get like hundreds of likes and loads of comments. And so when people start to comment, she engages with them. And when they start to ask questions like, about like, oh, this is really interesting, or thanks for this, and they comment, she then, yeah, exactly. It's called breadcrumbing. There's a technique. Yeah, it's a real thing, right? So then she basically messages them. And she's just gotten really good and really shit hot at how she then does her sales pitch. And she says she's really very, and I believe her, she's really good when she gets somebody on a call that she can close a deal on them. She can get them on her program. She knows she's really good at like coaching them, finding out like what they're looking for, what are their fears, what's important to them. What do they want to be able to do if they could see themselves in the future? What would they be doing? Future pacing them and literally like speaking directly about how the program is going to address all of that. It's going to give them all of that. And then she kind of closes the deal at the end. So she filled her course. The course started on Thursday. She was like, oh, I still need like 3 more people to sign up to my program. I'll get them in the next week. She got one over the weekend. And then this morning when we went to sunrise, she was like, oh, I woke up to an email in my email of someone else that is joining. So, she's using these methods. She's like, it's a quick. She's just on it. She's just in the group. She's just commenting on stuff. And when she sees people are commenting on stuff related to what she's doing, she comments back. And when they comment back to her and go, oh, I'm really interested in this, she DMs them. And she just says it's a numbers game. She's like, it's a numbers game. You put these posts out there, do quite, a couple of them a week in each group, just do like find loads of groups, just put the same post in all the groups or slightly different or whatever. She's like, it's a numbers game. Out of all of these 1,000 people that are going to like all of these different posts and people like, that are going to comment, she's like, it's a numbers game. Like some of those are going to comment and I'm going to message them and they're going to message me back and they're going to be like, this sounds great. And they're going to jump on a call and I'm going to get 2 people or 3 people book onto my mentorship. And that's how she does it. Okay, any questions? Does that sound, I'm curious to know your feelings on that and your how that's landing with your system.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting because I've been thinking about this recently. It's like people really love this educational content piece. So I'd love to see what kind of things it is that she's posting in these groups that's getting such a huge feedback from people, you know? Like, is it videos? Is it 5 top tips for this? Is it, what are the posts that she's putting in there? Because most of them just, the groups that I'm in, they just don't show up on the feed at all.
I can ask her. Let me do
Yeah.
that.
And yeah, I think it's great that it's working for her. And I think there's a piece in there around the practitioner element of it, which I think that practitioners are so much more likely, I'm generalizing, but so much more likely to invest in their own stuff because they're already on that path than the everyday person in a random Facebook group, I would say. No, no, what do you think?
Well, you've just given yourself a really great idea there. Maybe target practitioners.
Yeah, I mean, it feels big to do that. It's like, whoa. But I've been wanting to. Actually, similarly, it's interesting that this is particularly her thing because I've been wanting to do this for a while for other people in wellness to bring consent and sexuality awareness into more wellness fields. So yeah, there's something in there.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
Mm,
sharing that, Natasha.
you're welcome. I mean, my like Brooks and other teachers that I have and coaches, definitely my business coach, Dakini, she would totally be jumping on what you just said, Ria, and she'll be like, okay, well, if you know that practitioners are the ones that have money to invest, then that's exactly where I would suggest that you target. Why bother targeting demographics that you have to convince or it's a lot of money for them? That's
Oh
what
my
she,
God, that's totally how I'm feeling. It's like fucking hell, guys. Am I really having
yeah.
to really sell this to you? Like it's
Uh-huh.
amazing, you know? So yeah, there's definitely something in that. And it also made me think, what you were saying about your friend who has these amazing calls, consultation calls to really get people in and get them excited. I just don't feel like I have those tools to do that salesy aspect of things. And I'm really trying to find my own way to that.
Hmm.
But having like a business coach would be so amazing. Someone that I can work one-on-one with and not be just cut through the bullshit, I guess, of the online realms. So it's inspiring. Yeah.
Well, perhaps Shannon would like to come and show us how to do it, show us how to do the calls. I can always ask her, see if she's willing. And yeah, path of least resistance. And I was having this conversation with Brooks last night after treatment, and he was speaking to Rup and I, and we didn't get to like fully complete the conversation. But the thing that I was left with was we were we were talking about a few techniques for working with clients that Brooks was sharing with Roop, and he was giving us some kind of classic NLP sort of techniques, and I was like, okay, great, that works with a certain group of people, but a lot of the people that come to me like have complex trauma or they have trauma, right? And so it's not really just about working with our parts, manager parts, and re-rolling them and getting that, like negotiating with the manager parts, about going deeper to the exiles and really unburdening them and doing this deeper work. And he was kind of like, um, you know, do the work where there's least resistance. Maybe don't do as much of that work. Maybe do more work with practitioners or whoever, like the groups where it's kind of there's less dark energy to work with. And and I said, I agree with that. I agree. But where I am at the moment is that I know I'm transitioning to do fully just working with practitioners. But in order for me to do that work, to teach practitioners how to be space holders, integrated trauma informed space holders, I have to keep doing some complex trauma work to keep my finger on the pulse, to keep cultivating those skills to be able to pass them on. So, and that really kind of was like, oh, yeah. And I can have that intention to have as many clients as I need that are lay, kind of let's call ordinary people going through their deep, deep, soupy stuff, trauma. And also do my work, focus on my work with practitioners and have more of that easier work that is allows me, because of where I'm at right now, to just have more space around what I'm doing because it's not just about energetically it's a lot or I'm not making as much money from them. It's not just about these individual things. It's about there's a lifestyle that I'm creating. It's a whole lifestyle. So in order for me to live this entire lifestyle and to have all areas of this lifestyle feel that there's space and feel fulfilled, finances, being doing my practice, eating in time, like saving money, like doing artistic creative expression, like developing relationships, all of these different things. In order for me to do all of this, like professional development, blah 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 blah, the techniques that I'm using are going to impact all of that. But it's like I'm recognizing that in order to have, this is about creating a lifestyle. In order for me to be able to have impact in the world on anybody that I'm working with, I need to have this lifestyle. This lifestyle is absolutely crucial. And in order for me to have this lifestyle, there's got to be a way that I construct my business that's easy. So it doesn't take away from all of these other aspects of my lifestyle that I need to be able to come back and do this work. So if part of that means targeting the easy customers, then do it. Then we have to, if that's what it means, we have to do because I don't have time to educate every single person that's going to come on my program as to why they need to come on my program. I don't have time for that because I've got to like get up in the morning for sunrise and then do my practice. And then I've got to go and help my friend. And then I've got to do this other thing for myself. And then I have to read. And then I have to tend to my students. And then I have to do my client work. And like, I don't have time to be convincing people. So then maybe that's what we have to do. Maybe we have to make those adjustments into our life. And it is just purely pragmatic. And so we give ourselves permission to do that, to target where it's easy and reserve a few spaces for people that we will invest a little bit of time to help them to understand, to help their system to understand how this is beneficial for them. So that's my advice.
And I think even for me, like thinking about it from that angle and approaching it from that way, it feels quite expansive, really, because it's like actually there is so many things that I feel like I could be teaching in the field of sexuality rather than in the individual, if that makes sense. Like, talking about capitalism and colonialism and our impacts on sexual and the impacts on sexuality. That's so important to me. And I also feel like there's not that many in my people in my field talking about that. So yeah, it's quite inspiring really to think about zooming out. And also there's parts that are like, oh, are you good enough to do practitioner level stuff? Are you, so there's obviously something in there as well for that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And just trust in this process of energy work, of quantum mechanics,
Mm.
that you will naturally magnetize towards you that which you put out there, that which you are ready for. And we're going to speak to that in this next portion. This is actually all beautifully flowing because, there the class today, which we're going to take a break in a moment, but we'll flow into after that. The class that we missed at the immersion, which is going to be shared today, which is actually all divinely perfectly timed because, actually this is going to make so much more sense now that we've actually done the most important thing, which is to align ourselves celestially to the earth, like align our axis, align ourselves into this lifestyle. But now what we have to do is we have to learn to really fully come into the bigger picture, which is natural law. Like how is what we're talking about and eating in time and getting up with the sun and, thinking, tuning into our electrical system and, practices for that. What is this really all about? The bigger picture for all of this, it isn't just like a science lesson in quantum, more science in quantum mechanics. The biggest picture in all of this, which is the application of all of this, is how we come into natural and cosmic law, universal law, how we come into our flow and alignment, which can only be coming into natural law. And as part of that, we've got to deprogram and we've got to decolonize. And so that's what we're going to be flowing into today. And I feel that, Ria, with what you were saying with regards to, there's a lot of practitioners out there that just don't know this stuff. And this is the thing. It's like we can approach it in any angle. And that's what's so beautiful is that you, Ria, can come at it through sexuality and body wisdom. Nadine, you can come into it through herbal medicine or plant magic or and I can come at it through ceremonial work. We can come through at any angle, but the message is all going to be this. It's kind of there's like this central message here, which is like we are becoming empowered. We are clearing ourselves. We're strengthening ourselves. We are preparing to be way showers and leaders and space holders and therapists in our communities in different ways. And ultimately, what this is doing is this is restoring the culture of Earth. We are restoring the Earth realm lost wisdom, lost knowledge, and we're developing this culture more. And when we go through this spiritual journey and we clear enough of our burdened parts and we clear enough of that heavy, dense emotional energy, the shame, the guilt, the anger, the hurt, and we really the system starts to really believe that we don't need to suffer anymore. And we believe that, oh my gosh, not only do we need to not suffer, but we can also experience life and the whole spectrum of life, including adversity, discrimination, destitution, sickness in the body. We can experience all of that and not suffer and be liberated from suffering. And when that realization comes in, we can then go to the place of, I am now moving my consciousness beyond the grasping and attachment to heal, beyond the belief that I need to be healed, beyond the belief of even what that is. And I'm moving into an experience of being liberated from my suffering. And that I can do that in my last days alive on this earth as my body is dying. I can be free of suffering. As I am going through treatment for cancer, I can be free of my suffering. As I am destitute and living on the street, I can be free of my suffering. It is all a matter of just doing the inner work, having the privilege, yes, to do that. So if we can get to that point, then what is this all about then? If the point of life isn't about healing, is it about being liberated from suffering? Okay, yeah, that's cool. Well, then what does that mean? What then happens? Well, then we can actually experience life, the fullness of life, basically. We can experience life. We can be clear. We can receive the messages. We can receive the downloads. We can receive the remembrance of this lost knowledge. We can, because, we've spoken about this. The only way that information comes through is either by channeling it from our guides, from extraterrestrials, from the earth, from the ether, by remembering it, because, or by reading it, by being told through the oral tradition. And anything that you read, somebody wrote, and anything they wrote either happened because they received the insight from somewhere, from one of those sources, from the ether, or they did some scientific study and came into it. So everything, every information is all like recycled information. It's all coming in from nature around us. There is nobody owns an idea. We're literally just like magnetizing that idea because I'm at the right time able to pluck that idea out of the ether and make that idea happen. But there are people having the exact same idea as me all around the world. And so what's happening is by channeling the information, by remembering the information, by speaking to each other and being like, oh, yeah, and like I'm adding this piece. And then, oh, I had this experience that validates your experience. And then we have more experiences and then we all discuss it. And we're developing this knowledge and this information. We are cultivating the culture. This is how we cultivate earth realm culture and consciousness. And ultimately, everything then is about that. This is where I've gotten to at the moment. That our expression, the way what we speak to each other, how we express that through art, through sound, we express the feelings and emotions of our body. This is the cultural ways of ourselves as earthlings. When we teach practitioners to do their work, these are the earth. This is part of culture. This is our earth culture. This is how we heal as earthlings. This is what we've learned. These are the techniques that are needed for these superhuman bodies. Technique A, B, and C, or F, L, and P. And these are the ones that I'm teaching, but it's part of earth culture. So we are cultivating this earth culture and earth consciousness through what we are doing here. So the deprogramming and the decolonization so that we can receive and remember and restore is absolutely of utmost crucially fundamental so that we can also then come into this full flow state. And the easiest way of doing that is by aligning to natural law. And we'll talk about that after the break. So I'll take any questions that you have. I can see you've raised your hand, Nadine, and then we'll go take a break. Or you can save your questions and then bring them back after the break. Is that okay? Okay. So go ahead and bring your questions forward.
think we are still eating, so maybe I'll just go first. Um, yeah, after the last immersion weekend that we had with yourself and Root, there was a point that you touched on then that also, whilst you were just sharing before, really brought to the forefront of my mind something I meant to ask. So, um, I know you spoke quite a bit to the whole decolonisation of not just the way of being net like now that you just shared in this session, but before on the last call around like professional trainings and that kind of colonization in the I can't remember how you spoke to it exactly. Anyway, so for me moving forward, thinking about sort of business element you've been sharing now, there's so much that's current, that's sort of bubbling, that I've been working away on, that feels right now for the next sort of evolution of what I'm going to be offering. And yet maybe it's a part, but it is also a concern in a way, or something I'm considering, is about, okay, well, I've got all this knowledge, I've got all these different holistic trainings which I feel integrity with. I've got, you know, X amount of learned knowledge over decades, whatever, about plants and herbal medicine. But I didn't do a clinical herbal medicine degree for 4 years and don't have a certificate to show for that, which means I'm not accredited by the National Institute of Medical Herbalists. So that's kind of a point where I'm really at the minute, whilst also hearing practitioners like yourself sharing about the decolonisation process. So I guess I just wanted to ask that as a question. You know, I could step forward fully in integrity, you know, sharing and always stating that I'm a lifelong student as well. But then how do I get around some quite real considerations around herbal safety, around safety for people, about am I allowed to do this?
Hmm. Yeah, amazing question. And I'm going to keep bringing this back to that magical parts question. Is that what are your parts afraid of? What are they afraid will happen if you do the thing that you know in your bones that you're here to do? That if you integrate and incorporate all of this into your practice right now, what are your parts afraid will happen? Can you give us a little answer? Are you
Oh,
willing just to
sorry.
indulge us a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that come off that. One is the direct answer. My parts, I think, would worry that some body, like as in a governing body or somebody, would pull me up on, well, you're not a clinical herbalist, so what makes you think you can teach this kind of content or mentor people or share this, da 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 da. Um, the other part that then come, well, the other part or subject that comes up for me on that is, um, which I've always struggled with, in like a label, like a name, like a, you know, what am I calling myself? What is this? What are you? What's your offering? I've always found that a challenge. Um, mm,
Hmm. So great. That question, that golden question, tells us directly what work we need to do to reassure our parts, because our parts hold so much wisdom and they're going to direct us to the action that we need to take. And so, yes, of course, within what you've shared, straight away, there are some breadcrumbs that you can take there into your personal therapy or your supervision. For example, working on the parts of me that are holding fear about how I would communicate, or, whatever it is. I'm just picking something up, right? But there's things that you can directly take into there. And then there's action that you can take to work out and be clear on the ethics and legalities of things in the region, the countries that you're in. So once you know that, once you know, okay, well, these are the boundaries. This is where like how things lie legally. I'm not saying you should adhere to all of that, but I'm just saying once you're aware of your own ethical codes and standards. And this is really important because it's those principles that are going to guide you. It's those principles that when you cultivate that and you embody that and you believe so much in that, that will give you the confidence to do the work that you do. Part aspects of my work are questionable legally. You all can read between the lines and know which aspect of my work I'm talking about. So, but my principles and values they just transcend that. The energy and the frequency of what I believe that these therapies can offer so much. So the energy of that naturally transcends the burdens and the fear in my system. So that naturally takes me into that space where I can really embody that and I'm willing to do that work and take what I need to take into supervision and understand how to navigate the legal realm. And there's very much a difference between regulation and legality. And that's something for you to explore because regulation doesn't necessarily mean that it's legal. And that's why I removed myself from many regulatory bodies because I don't want them saying, oh, Natasha, you're not hitting the things you subscribed to. Because I'm like, shit, why did I subscribe to that? Why did I join this body? So they could just tell me that I can't do what I'm doing. So I removed myself from most of them and only kept on the ones that I kind of needed to. And then when you kind of left, when you sort of kind of know where you're at, the real decolonization work can take place. And this is the work that we do to aligns to our principles and values. We can start to detach from the need to do things in a way that we were told to by a constructed system that we don't subscribe to on the whole. And that's what this decolonization process is all about. It's about examining and questioning the structures that have been imposed and that we've allowed ourselves to be involved with, that we've engaged with, and start to see where we've tied ourselves up energetically with these institutions, with these ideas, and how those programs have formed belief systems within our very being, and which one of those now we want to delete, transmute, leave behind, which one do not fall into alignment with our own principles, with our own value systems, with our own with natural law ultimately. Because actually from a higher level perspective, the institutions and things that are out there that are not in alignment with natural law are already karmically implicating themselves, right? That's their shit. That they got to deal with that. We don't need to be involved in that. So it's important also to examine, like, are we creating more karma with the practices that we include, that we are involving ourselves into codependencies and such with our clients, so like, if we have a contract and we're like, make them sign a contract, and then we get into all this thing around the contract, and then there's like, you didn't follow the contract, and then that's an old, very colonial way of doing things, of getting people to agree to something, of to sign away something. And it's a particular way of creating a power dynamic, a particular type of power dynamic. a contractual obligation where you're not allowed to change your mind. It's in my favor, and I know I'm not going to change my mind on these terms. Karmically, already, that's already taken out of your bank balance, out of your energetic punya, your merit that you've already accumulated, the energy you already have. So already just by like forcing people to obligate themselves in that way is already karmically doing something. And it's all these little ways, these little things, these little structures we have that's karmically just like chipping away at our system is impacting our generators. It's impacting our electrical system. It's impacting our electromagnetic field. It's because if we are generating this karma, what we're doing is we're generating like more belief systems, more conditioned identity. Like, I believe I have to have this contract. Like, I believe I need to do, let's think of it something else. What else? Let's throw it in. You can put it in the chat. What's another really colonial thing that we can do as healers or that exists out there? What's like another, status quo colonial thing? Drop me an example.
I believe that people have to pay for healing and support.
So you explain to me what is the colonial construct within that?
Well, it's like the capitalization and the money, the money aspect of community and collective care. That only people who have money can afford to have that.
Okay, okay. So let's work with that. So only people that have physical money can afford to have afford to have that. So say for example, we're creating an offering, like we're out there in the world, and every single thing that we do is around making money. Like everything is around how can we extract the most amount of money from people. Like there's no other way that you can exchange with me. There's nothing free that I give away. Everything is about making money. I've got that. I've got this contractual thing. I've got this other thing. I've got this, the way that I sell is like, I'm like, Ria, you need this. Like, you are not in a good place. Like, if you don't do this mentorship, you're going to run into trouble, and I know that, you are, I know that you're worried about money, but, you're not going to make any money if you don't do the mentorship. It's like I just made that up, right? But it's like we've got all these different karmic, all of these different beliefs, right? And these beliefs are ultimately a whole load of different thoughts, like rolling around in our minds. These beliefs now we have formed these opinions, these thoughts, and these emotions around them. My whole sense of self-worth is based around how well I can sell my work, how well I'm like recognized in my field, how well my Instagram page is doing, like, how well people are like, I activating, having their Kundalini activations around me. And so like all of that is my belief system. And if I don't feel that and see that, I feel bad. I don't feel like I'm doing the thing, and my coaches are telling me, you need to be making more money. So I have this whole belief system. And where I'm getting depleted is where energetically, like my emotions are sitting, my sense of self-worth, my sense of failure, like we talked about in the supervision session, like the things, shit, I didn't hit that target. I'm failing. Like all of that stuff underneath that I'm trying to compensate for having this approach to my work. All of those like emotions and feelings, they are sitting and they're taking away that electrical charge from those generators. They're depleting those generators. And those generators are getting so depleted that they're impacting on the paired generator. And they're getting so depleted that they're then impacting on the next set of generators. And my electrical system now is so depleted, it's starting to damage the tissues and organs, and I'm getting infections and with this or whatever it is. And ultimately, I'm not able to receive all of the full downloads and the information and the wisdom and everything that is available to me. And so my flow state is hindered, and my flow state is actually in direct relation to this whole paradigm and construct that I am creating, that I'm operating in its limited bubble, that is based on the construct of my burdens and belief systems and all of that. So this self serves within this limited system, within this limited bubble. And so to break out of that and break free of that, we've got to start to examine where it is we've tripped ourselves up, where our blind spots are, like, what belief systems don't serve us anymore, what are outdated, which are the belief systems of others that we've been following, what is like truly burdened in our system that's creating us to feel like we have to earn money, 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 or whatever it is. What's stopping me from having other offerings that are just free and available for people to help balance out when I have to charge for, all that kind of stuff. And then coming back to what Nadine was sharing, it's like, well, how can I do this work? And, there's this, yes, fear you can go and work on, but there's this very real, this very real idea that parts do have, which is, there are people out there that are sensitive towards practitioners being at a certain level and having certain training and doing that certain thing. And so this is where the part of the breaking out of that system is also breaking out of how we're affected by other people's judgment. Because that self-contained bubble that we're operating within that's limited, we can dissolve away the example that we have, and we just see it as a general, any self-contained bubble that all of us are operating within now. We're all limiting ourselves with our work. We have all created a self-contained bubble that has limiting beliefs within that. We're all working on this, right? But it's about looking and understanding, where is my perception of others or my fear of judgment from others? How is this also hindering me? Like, others won't think that I am qualified to do this. Others won't think, like, practitioners will be like, why is she doing this program? She's not been working in this field. Who says that she's an expert to be able to teach this to practitioners? All this kind of stuff that we've been talking about. This is directly the stuff that we have to deprogram. And coming back to natural law, remember that the healers of a time past, the herbalists, didn't go to herbal medicine school. They
You
didn't.
literally took it out of like read my mind, because that's what I was going to like say
They,
next.
they
When
didn't.
yeah,
They
and
how did they? So
I
Nadine,
would come. I would
how did they learn about the plans? Tell
well,
me, like
through
a
the
thousand
land,
years ago.
the like word of mouth, through the golden thread, through lineage, and that's exactly what I was just going to sort of mention as well. And you hit the nail right on the head, because sitting in integrity in self, I would comfortably, if I have to label myself anything, I would, amongst other things, say I'm a herbalist, because I live and breathe it. I really do. And but when I'm teaching and when I used to run sessions, I would always say, I'm just sharing knowledge. It's not mine. I'm sharing it. And that's almost giving that respect, that carrying through that, I hope, like decolonization of saying, this is our knowledge to inherently remember. And is that enough? That's my approach. I guess that's answering a question. The word that came in just then was like conduit. It's, yes, this is what I
Exactly.
call myself if I have to label, but I'm sharing this for you and for your
Mhm.
empowerment. And I guess
Mhm.
that's the new way that we're talking about.
The new way isn't the new way. The new way is the ancient future way. This is it,
Way.
right? It's like the new way of doing the old way. And as Brooks shared at the beginning of his talk last week, we are all magnificently divine beings. We are the same as those 1,000 years ago, those medicine women and men who lived isolated and who didn't have the golden current, Nadine. They didn't have a teacher. They sat with the plants and they communed with the plants. And you know that. And I know you do that also. It's this aspect. And so, again, those of you that have been on our other programs, and we teach this and we guide this in much more detail, the path of self-initiation is of utmost importance. It is up to you. It is your radical self-responsibility to initiate yourself through your journey, to recognize where your inner work needs to happen, where the deprogramming needs to happen, where the ethics need to be, where you need to study and develop your own sense of integrity or values and principles, uphold yourself to them, and how you initiate yourself through that. How you work with so if that's your thing, Nadine, then a big part of your work is going to be to call forward initiations with plants, to have that as a part of your journey, dietas, communing with the plants happening all the time, so that you could confidently answer that question to your students and to others. Well, I commune with the plants on this level, as well as have my training, as well as keep myself in this clinical supervision, as well as, have these protocols for safety. And you can confidently state that. And that's it. It's being able to confidently stay in your power and be able to explain why this ancient future way is the way, and allow people to want to argue with you and not indulge in that. I was doing a client call before and I was explaining that there's a difference between expressing a boundary, stating and expressing a boundary, and exploring in conversation. There's a very clear and distinct difference. If you, and this is the mastery I'm working on. It's great to explain it, but in theory and practice, much more challenging. But we can express our boundaries. We can express our sentiments and say, this is me. This is how I work. This is how I do it. This is where you can find the information. And that's that there. I'm going to leave you with that. And I welcome any questions via email. That's holding and embodying a boundary. This is where I'm at. I'm not here to have a conversation. I'm not here to have an argument with you. And I'm not here to educate you. So this is where I stand. You can read about it on my website. That's that. If you have more questions, if you'd like to have a discussion, you can contact me and then I will consider it. Yeah, there's a big difference between that and someone bringing something up and our parts that are afraid of, if we don't answer them, if we don't give them a good answer, then and indulging in their thing, because they're only going to win from that, because their parts are clever and their parts are going to back us into a corner, and then we're going to fall and then we fucked it, right? And then we have to backtrack and send that email that says, actually, no, that shouldn't have happened. So we've got to master this and be like, this is the boundary, and this is the embodied boundary, and this is the self-led embodied boundary. This is how I'm holding it up, and this is where there's area and room for discussion, and this is how to get in touch with me, and this is how we can have that. But for now, this is what it is. And also opening up an exploration. There's two big differences, and we've got to master the art of this. Now, for me, and this is, of course, disclaimer and goes without saying, I am absolutely not advising that any of you, and we discussed this in the trauma-informed healing, and this is the same as being informed in whatever modality you are in. You apply the same teachings, that you only ever teach to your capabilities and your capacity. So everything in that last immersion, in that last class, apply that to your own modality. Just replace trauma with another word. Being herbalist informed, being energy informed, being embodied practice, somatically informed, right? It's all about understanding what are the red flags, what are the contraindications, what are the signs and symptoms, what are you working with, what are your capacities, what's your capabilities, what's your referral route, what's the route of healing, the journey of healing for your customer going through, your client going through, what they're going through in this field with you, what's the potential for them. You've got to be aware of that, of course. You've got to do that work. You've got to do your due diligence. You've got to have your supervision. You've got to do your personal therapy. And I know you all are. You're on this mentorship. You definitely are doing it. It's so much easier to cultivate the confidence from this place, to just let all of that old stuff, colonial stuff, just fall away. And so this class wasn't intended ever to be a deep training in decolonization, because that's a whole other course on its own. It's meant to be an opening for you to ponder and to contemplate. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love for you to like just unmute yourself or drop into the chat. Like just like shout out, let me know like what are the things you're now questioning in terms of your own practice that you would like to like inquire into, to look at if there are any limitations or any colonial, any constructs that you'd like to explore and maybe reshape. Anything within your existing practice that you currently do.
Well, I mean, just off the top of my head, my practice has sort of been in a state of hibernation since last year due to my own healing, which was an initiation because that led me back to herbal medicine on another whole level. I guess the questions I was having before in my mind were for my own continuing practice. I've been wanting to go deeper and actually do another training myself. But they're not in this country, and so therefore they're not, you wouldn't be insurable by British law and you wouldn't be recognised in British law. And I've sort of held off on that because I thought, well, am I wasting my resources and should I wait and do something in the UK that's accredited? But that's not what resonated. So it's just kind of given me that thought of, yeah, that's the whole point. You're continuing the learning and deepening for yourself, and how you share that doesn't have to be because it's accredited in the UK. It can be accredited in the US, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's still knowledge that you're then going to be able to put out there to other people. So yeah, I get that. That's to reframe that decision in my mind.
And I feel all of this is a potential to motivate us to just have safer practices so that we have less risks and, and kind of less of these sorts of situations where, people are going to sort of be potentially targeting us for any sort of anything that they're not happy with. And there's a bigger thing to this too, which is like, well, got to be in it to win it. Got to be part of the movement of the practitioners that break away from all of this imposed weird, stuff and just do it so that, we're all together, we're all in it together. And then soon we will be able to be as one, as we've been talking about spiritually for a long time. We're still so divided in so many, oh, if you did that over there, you're not insured, sorry, you can't be part of our club. It's not where we're going as one humanity. And so I think it's very brave, Nadine. Anything from you, Ria?
Just a thought that I had, which is interesting, and I think that it's just to say that, yeah, what is it that's coming through? It's like there are so many practitioners who don't have any integrity. There are so many practitioners who do this work from a really wounded place for power or for manipulation or to feel better about themselves in some way. And I just think it's interesting to be coming at this conversation because I mean I came from this approach from a very non regulated training background. This was very like non-local wisdom. Something needs to be done, so I'm just going to start doing it. And I've really been journeying with this throughout the years because I've never really found a course on sexuality that I thought, this is exactly what I want to learn. So they're teaching this in the way that I want to learn it. So it's like, okay, well, got to do it my own way, you know? But yeah, just the piece around, and also as we're talking about colonization, is like the commodification and capitalization of healing journeys and healing processes and the historical context of colonization does make all of this stuff quite sticky, you know, for people like white people doing cacao ceremonies with no reference in any way to where it's come from or the deeper meaning. It's like, oh, here's a little thing that we're just gonna do at the start, no context. Oh, a little cup of hot chocolate, no context. And I think that it's just interesting to be walking this line of where, yeah, like what do we do with this information and what about the commodification of,
Mhm.
indigenous practices? It's just, it's alive, it's very alive for me, you know?
Absolutely. And this is it. When we go into decolonization in a deeper way, we do really explore the dimension of, if we're talking about colonization, who we're talking about being colonized. And there's two aspects to this. It's the indigenous knowledge, and also it is ourselves. We have been colonized and we have colonized others. And everybody is indigenous to somewhere. And there are different notions within different cultures about what even cultural appropriation is, what even like it is to be colonized. What is it to be appropriating something from there? Like there's so many different layers, sensitivities, ideas, notions within all of the cultures about this stuff. So it's not easy to say colonization means this and appropriation means this, and these are the do's and these are the don'ts, because it's different in every society. And for me, again, it comes back to a personal set of ethics and integrity for us to tune into. Well, what does it might not even be that decolonization is the word for you. That's just what's sexy and trendy right now. That's the only reason I'm using it, to be very honest with you, because everyone else is using it. And it's relatable. That's the thing that makes you go, oh yeah, cool. It's got a module on that, so I'll purchase that. I'll purchase that mentorship because that I need to do that. But it's way beyond this. Like really, in essence, this whole program is a decolonization process. This whole program is a shedding, unraveling, reprogramming ourselves process, right? So there's the macro and there's the micro, and trust me, like with this whole thing, the differences that I have witnessed from culture to culture is absolutely astounding. I've been with very many fear-based um cultures, indigenous cultures, that feel that their idea of what colonization is so strong. They feel like they're being colonized in every single moment of every single day, and it's dark for them. And it's like, not allowed to take photos. You're not allowed to use this. You can't come and wear certain feathers, and you can't do this. And there's like all these rules, and it's still very fear based. They're still very much in their trauma. There's still a lot of fear there. And then there are some cultures that you go to where they're like, yeah, wear our clothes. Like, come on, why aren't you wearing our clothes? Like, you're at one of our events, so you should be, let me go get you the clothes. Like, like like adorn yourself with all of this stuff, like, or and some of those cultures have experienced until very recently very strong colonization. Like their lands were pillaged and raped. They were forced to go to war, but yet they just have a completely different attitude towards like sharing their practices and their knowledge. They're like, this is for everyone. This isn't ours. We just sat on a mountain and channeled it through, but it's for everybody. So it's there are these questions are really important, Ria, and it's important to consider from a cultural sensitivity point of view in relation to those individual cultures, and to know when you're working with a particular tradition, what, not just like where did stuff come from and like, that kind of stuff, but like how do they feel? How do you feel about, these teachings being shared with the world? What's right? What's appropriate? What's not? Like really like listening to the stories, like gauging where is this trauma still lying, like working with the individuality and the layers and the sensitivity of each culture to understand what is appropriate because it's completely, completely different.
And I guess on that, like what with the energy work practices that we learn, like where's that context for us then teaching that? Because, I love to integrate these things into my practices. And I guess I don't know on that level. I mean, obviously I know that your teacher, I've forgotten his name, teaches this in, Rishikesh. So yeah, but from your words, I guess I'm interested to know.
Yeah. Well, with relation to particularly the Vedic lineage, through my teacher Anand Mehrotra from his school Sattva Yoga Academy, I am, and it's also about, this is great, because the additional thing is it's understanding from your teacher, understanding their level of initiation and having that expressed to you. So thank you for bringing this into greater clarity. So I am initiated as a master teacher within that lineage, and have been since my initial yoga teacher training. I am permitted to share, to teach these teachings. It is very much that is what I've been asked to do, is to share these teachings with my students and be very clear when I'm taking my students through a program where they're being initiated to be able to pass on these practices, and being clear that this is how you're initiated to pass on the practices, and this is the process. So I pass it to you, I teach you about the kriyas like we did in the energy medicine program. I give you the breakdown, and then you go away and practice it until it becomes an embodied practice. You do the 21-day practice with it, and then you can teach it. And it's having that personal set of integrity of being like, okay, I did the 21-day practice, but I don't feel still like I'm ready to teach this with the world. I need to learn X and Y and Z, which you have done. And you've come to us and you've asked for the information and you've done the study. So it's having that set of values plus knowing, okay, my teacher was initiated. This is how my teacher initiates me. And this is the expectation from me of when I'm ready to go and pass this on to others, and being clear how that is within each lineage because it's very different. But this is a good staple thing. You get a teaching, your teacher tells you you can pass it on once you've done 40 days of practice. That's a standard. But I also am with I teach with other schools that are very prescriptive, and they say, well, you can't teach this until you've done all 3 years and you've done this and you've done that, then you can share it. So it's different for every lineage and for every school. And it's important to find that out up front, because I've studied with some places where I like, well, if I'd known that beforehand, I probably wouldn't have invested in this program, because now you're telling me that I have to spend pretty much $15,000 in order to be able to then go and teach this stuff. Wish I'd known that at the beginning. Again, secretly, these are very colonial things that are woven into the fabric of what people are offering. And there's blind spots there too. So this is a whole field. And my final suggestion and piece of advice is that the quickest way for us to deprogram ourselves, whatever you want to call it, decolonize, shed, release, transmute, deprogram, so that we can come into our integrity and our full alignment is by aligning ourselves to the natural cycles of nature. First and foremost, to the sun, to the moon, to the celestial. These celestial cycles, really important. Don't get too carried away with the other ones, with astrology. I would not recommend that. I don't think that that is a good way of aligning with natural law. Vedic or Western astrology, I think that's a supplemental thing for later on in your path when you're really, 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 really knowledgeable and proficient with those systems. And you've trained yourself to be able to hold them in a non-dual way. But then the next thing is following the medicine wheel and the directions, the north, the east, the south, the west, to aligning yourself to the seasons, to the equinoxes, to aligning yourself to these most basic, fundamental, natural laws. That the seasons, what happens in each season, what happens to our in nature, what happens to our bodies, what happens to our consciousness, what happens to our psychological state, our emotional state, what is the cycle of nature? Like drawing from this wisdom and knowledge is the easiest way to align ourselves to a natural way of being, to help to shed everything else, to come back to the truth. These are the only markers of truth that we really have, is the sun, the moon, the earth, the seasons, the elements, the cardinal directions, the light, the way that light is. What is light? Photons of light. Study light. Study the soil. What is it? How does it work? How do things decompose and then grow again? Encoded within all of those, the gestation of a human baby in the womb, study it. Like when is it that the neural crest develops? Like all of this, these are markers of time and markers of the true construct that we if we align to this, to the truth, the distilled, ego-less, burdenless truth, this is where we will find our greatest flow. Okay, anything else? Any final questions or responses or comments?
Just to say thank you for sharing all that.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And just to share that this is an ever evolving space of work for me. And it shall be forever, forevermore, and continue into the next lifetime and the next. So forgive me, should I contradict myself in the future at some point? It's likely. Likely.
We'll forgive you, Natasha.
We'll beg
It's
your
more
pardon.
about, can I forgive myself?
Yeah.
Okay, well, to everybody in the future watching this, enjoy. Thank you for joining us also. Thank you, Nadine and Ria, for being here in person. Let's just take a moment, just a really quick moment, just to consolidate inside any of the parts that are around, sensations, feelings, thoughts, just letting our parts know there's a lot here. There's going to be a lot to digest for a long time, that this is no expectation to get it right, figure it out now. Just let it percolate. asking our parts to honor our request for that spaciousness within so that we can come into the knowing of these transmissions of more to come, also our own unique transmissions to come through. And gratitude for all our parts helping to get us here, to our guides, to our teachers, to the ascended ones, to all of the beings that protect and guide us, to Mother Earth, the cosmic realm, to our sun, the grandmothers, the grid, the dragons, to the elements and the cardinal directions, and all the plant and animal spirits, and to the ancestors of the land that we walk on and our own benevolent ancestors for backing us. Taking just a few breaths to ground and anchor into this space and coming back when you're ready.